good to see you here and to be back in this space. I really enjoy coming here and being here. Is this the fourth event in this space? Because we did one online.
We did one online, so 3 in this
Three,
space.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it's just like
Well, 2 in this one.
Like coming home. And so I was last here in April 2019. So thank you all for coming out this morning, coming to the space, being here. This is kind of the end of my kind of teaching, formal teaching. I have one more event tomorrow in Portsmouth as well, but I'm really glad to be kind of ending here with you all in this space. Yeah, well, for today, I don't know if you know the schedule, but at 1, we'll take a break, a long break for an hour, so you can, kind of have lunch or whatever. And, up until then, there'll be shorter breaks and so forth. It's important to take care of yourself, really, just to use the space. I see how the yoga mats out. Whenever you need to just kind of like lie down or stretch up or walk or take a break, please do so. This isn't, a rigid space, or this is a queer space, so we're gonna get fluid and who knows what's gonna happen. Last night, we were singing This Little Light of Mine spontaneously, and that was a thing. And we used to sing along, and that may happen again. That's how queer it gets, But yeah, so we're talking about resiliency, and there are so many ways to think about this, to practice with this. For me, this is really about care, right? How do we offer ourselves care? And, we come from communities that are so deeply impacted by, here's the violence system, wanting us to be a certain way, not to be ourselves. We hold the weight that aggression and violence. I often say that our care has to be as organized and systematic as the violence and aggression that we experience systematically. So in other words, our care can't be something that's kind of like, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, but it has to be, because systematic violence is consistent. It's regular, right? It's predictable. So we're working to make it unpredictable and disruptive, but our care has to match that. So for me, my care is really based upon love. Love for myself, compassion for myself, first and foremost. To offer that love and compassion for myself, because that's the only way I can offer it to others. I see so many people who, particularly since I've been here teaching, talking with people, listening to people who are really exhausted. This is like all of us. Really look at what many of us are surviving. Not just what's happening in the world in terms of pandemic and war, but just the things that we've always been surviving. So it's that end, right? And that disrupts this kind of resiliency, this kind of like being able to return back, right? Returning back to work, returning back to relationships. Like, as my teacher used to say, it's about falling down and getting back up over and over and over again, and making that the practice. How do you create practice and personal systems of care to hold not just ourselves, but to do the work of holding our communities, right? It's both individual and collective. When I think about queer community, I think about community. Community is the key word here. It's like it's us. And it's us. Not just me. How do we hold each other? I know it's hard for us to be in certain spaces, because sometimes the last thing I want to be around is some like drama that we, just perpetuate. It's like we want to be together, we want to love each other, we need each other, but at the same time, it's so hard. And that's because we need more care for ourselves, for our communities. And we have to start prioritizing the ethic of care, not weaponizing the trauma, not seeing each other as targets, which becomes easy. This is easy because we mirror each other. Like I'm dealing with my pain, I'm sitting with someone who's mirroring it back to me. And that's hard to hold. So how do I open into compassion? How do I, as many of you have been with me, the past couple of weeks, how do we call in the resources, the supports that we need? How can I just sit and just say, I really need more rest. I need more space. I need people in my community to really support me right now. How do I start asking for that? Not just asking people or organizations, but just starting to articulate that I need this. And this is what I do in my practice. I do this in prayer. Everyone has a different practice of doing this, but my practice is prayer and asking. Saying this is what I need. Like whenever I feel overwhelmed, when I feel underwhelmed, I always go back and ask myself, okay, what do I need right now? Because this is too much. What do I need to invite into my practice? And these are just some of the tools of resiliency. Resiliency doesn't mean that we are trying to stop suffering necessarily, but we're trying to create the space to hold it. Right? When I say holding, I mean we're trying to disrupt our reactivity. And we're always reacting over and over again because that's depleting. But we want to kind of transition from a space of reaction to responsiveness. I'm choosing how to respond because that's how I protect my energy. I think that's the hardest thing, at least for me, that I've had to work on over the past 2 years is trying to really get clear about what it is I should be focusing on, who I should be caring for, and who my communities are. Yes, the larger community of humanity is my community, but I also have an ethical obligation to care for the communities that have helped me survive. The communities that are responsible for me being here. There are relationships that are directly responsible for my survival. And those are the relationships I am called to care for, to be a part of. Right? And I'm also needing support. So this is kind of the balance. It's a part of this. Not only am I called to be of support, I'm also called to open to the support that I'm receiving. This is kind of this reciprocal kind of cycle here. I think some of us were just plugged into this kind of identity of being the giver. Like we're the doer, we're the giver, we're the one who's showing up, we're the organizer, we're the one who cares, we're the one sending the text, checking in, like we're that person. But sometimes that's a trap because that's a position of power that we get really kind of tied into, because it keeps us from being vulnerable, experiencing vulnerability. I can just be the one offering resources, right? Then I don't slip into the vulnerability. And the vulnerability means also touching into the heart bit. But for us to be members of communities, we also have to be receivers. You know, dare I say, versatile. Whatever that means, I don't know. I just to be open, to understand that there's this balance that's happening. That for those of us who are really offering a lot of care, to realize that we also need a lot of care. And maybe that's the care that we're offering ourselves as well. Absolutely. But that's also some care that comes from others around us that we have to open to. It's kind of an accountability thing. Like when you're opening to the care, you know, you're held accountable because it's keeping you connected. It's bringing you into more of a linear relationship instead of a hierarchical relationship where you're the giver only. But when you're both giving and receiving, it brings us into an equal relationship where we're seeing each other, you know, and relationships as, well, as I want to use the word dynamic, but to see it as this organic, dynamic relationship where we're just like, we're understanding how we're each other's teachers and students or mentee and mentors, you know, that kind of like shifting in a relationship, you know, I'm just not the teacher. That's not the most accurate way to describe it, because I'm also a student. I'm also a member, right? Though some of us, including myself, take on roles of leadership or authority, it doesn't mean that like we're not needing of care and support. So it always, you know, for me, that really comes up as something to always share. You know, particularly for those of us, again, who are leaders who feel as if you can't get the care that you need. Like you're the one that everyone's always calling. You know, until something happens to you, right? And you can't offer the care, and then there's a disruption because you just held that position, you know, and not been able to actually practice that kind of vulnerability and versatility. People say, "Oh my God, you need help," right? You know, like we thought you were like a super person, you know, like superhuman. No, you're human. And there's also a complexity here as well, that I believe that many of us are really touching into the complexity. You know, we can call it intersectionality, you know, but there's multiple things happening at once. There are multiple identities coming together. It's not just being queer, it's being, you know, and experiencing other identity locations at the same time, you know, that shape a particular experience. And that takes work to really see that arising for people. But you can't see that complexity in others until you begin to touch into it for yourself. If I understand myself as being complex, then I begin to understand others as being complex, regardless of how they're showing up, how they're performing. There's more going on. That's the kind of care we offer people. We allow them to be complex, which for us, we often say that it means allowing people to be messy. I enjoy messiness, which is different than being dramatic and drama. Drama and messiness are two different things. Both can be entertaining. You know, we've gotten some really great reality TV shows out of, you know, both of them. But like, when I talk about messy, there's a skillfulness to messiness. Messiness means that like, I'm not engaging in the aggression of always trying to be put together. You know, not always like, I would say lined up, sorted out, as we would say. I'm not sorted out, so, you know, which I love that word, sorted out, you know. But that's how we show up. We just like have to be organized, have to be together, have to say the right thing, you know, and that becomes really aggressive. And I just wonder how we practice allowing, or how do we practice a kind of care in our communities that allows for messiness, skillful messiness, but people are really trying to figure out how to be. Right? Of course, drama is something that people feed into, something drama is distracting. You know, it's a really nice way not to do work. Like, let's just do the drama. And drama becomes a cycle that we all get wrapped up in until you get exhausted and you say, enough. Let's get real about this. These are some of the things that are coming up, right? And one thing that I do really want to practice is something that's become a really important practice for me. Over this past year, what I feel like so many of our queer elders have been passing on. You know, really like intensely, like it was like a mass exit. You know, out. I think about bell hooks, you know, as one of those elders, but many more. There's so many that I don't even know of. Thich Nhat Hanh, you know, not necessarily being a queer elder, but like just being an elder for many of us who've been meditating and practicing. You know, one elder for me has been Andre Leon Talley, you know, who was just kind of fashion icon, you know, but Sadat and I love Andre Leon Talley. And he was someone I really wanted to meet. Like, I really felt like there was learning for me, but you know, when people like this pass, it just feels like they're gone. You know, for many of us coming out of this community, kind of queer community, trans community, there's been so much loss between the AIDS epidemic and systematic violence. You know, we lose so many people, and grief becomes so much of our practice, right? But I've been really like practicing with connecting to elders who have passed on, like connecting to their energy, their spirit, their energy, you know, their inspiration, their mind. I want to do a little bit of that, to invite our elders back, who really aren't lost. They're still with us. It only takes a thought to take us back to their consciousness, their energy. I want to do a little bit of that, and just give some time for like just some personal movement, a little bit of like walking, you know, personal stretching and movement practice. Maybe a little bit of rest practice, and there's a lot to do. This is not like a weekend retreat. It's just like we'll get to a fair amount of this, right? And there, of course, time for questions as well. Yeah. One thing that, you know, as we begin, I just want to kind of start us out with just a little bit of practice, and a short break, and then some discussion. Like, I'm interested in just for a couple of minutes, just us sitting and just reflecting on why we're here. Why we're here and what we need. Getting clear about that. Yeah, that's going to help me. You know, you don't have to talk about it, you have to experience it, you don't have to express it. Like, I just want to feel it. Like, I want to feel your need. Like, why are you here? And then that begins to shape the space. we go next. So just reflecting, why am I here? What do I need? Allowing yourself to just be in this space, to be in this beautiful light blue space. It feels like being in the sky, being in clouds. We're in heaven, but it'll be more colors.